I hear you, Ben.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thanks. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started then. We're about two after. Thanks everyone who's here with us. This gets recorded and put up on the website so people who can't join can also watch. July 8th, 2024. We're going to go ahead and dive in. So to start things off, we've got Claire Fiji with the Enteric team at the DHHS, who's going to give us a brief update on some of the Salmonella outbreak investigations that they've been doing over there. Claire, if you want to take it away.
Yep, thanks, Ben. This is Claire, and I will also let Brianna, my partner, give a little update as well. So we've had quite a few Salmonella cases come through recently, and we did have a couple of those connected to a outbreak that stemmed from a CWS tailgate. We're not quite sure what the vehicle of an illness was, just due to the inability to test leftover food. But Brianna can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we have at least 6 confirmed cases, with quite a few of those being whole genome sequence. So we're just waiting for those results. And I also believe on a monthly basis for us, we send out a document to our local health departments with an outbreak investigation table. So updates to outbreaks that we've been investigating over that last month, kind of gives a rundown of if it's active or closed, how many cases we're looking at, where it's occurring, and if it's a local or multi-state outbreak. And I believe Pete was wanting to kind of give you guys a little insight into that, just starting kind of with Salmonella this go around, and the whole genome sequences that we're seeing most common and things like that. I'll let Brianna continue that conversation.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe Pete, if you wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, how you're pulling that information from our monthly outbreak tables and then creating an annual summary for the clinical labs. Did you want to touch on that?
But yeah, I can touch a little bit. I just, as appreciation to the labs for sending in their salmonella positive stools for culture or their isolates. You send these things to us, but you never hear what we do with these things. And I thought it would be nice to send out maybe an annual report to show that we are actually sequencing all these isolates from Salmonella, Shiga toxin, E. coli, Listerias, et cetera. Preparing a national database as well as a local database to show outbreaks. And I think it's just a way for us to show laboratorians that we actually do something with the things that they send in. And I think it would be nice to see what is being done. So I think that's the gist behind it, Brianna, Claire, just to kind of give the laboratories a look at what we actually are doing with the things that they're sending us. So it isn't just a lost isolate going into a big black hole. So that's kind of just where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful. I know we started our monthly outbreak table earlier this spring, and our main purpose for that was to communicate with primarily local health departments, because often we would receive emails or phone calls saying, hey, does Nebraska have any cases in this multi-state outbreak? Or so we thought, it would be a good way to just do this on a monthly basis to see what outbreaks we're all involved in right now. And which local health departments and jurisdictions. So I think it's been really helpful, and locals like that. So I think it's great that we can do that on the clinical lab side too.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and we send a lot of stuff to the CDC, but we never get a result back, and we always kind of wonder, gee, I wonder what they're doing with that stuff, with those isolates. And I think the laboratorians out there probably wonder the same thing. They send a lot of stuff to us, never hear anything, and I think it's just a way for us to communicate with the laboratorians. So hopefully that'll be a nice way to open the gates up a little bit about what we actually do.
And Pete, did you say, or I know we had some discussions that they'll be included in the newsletter, the monthly newsletter, is that correct?
I believe so. Is Becky, are you on the call?
get feedback.
Yeah, we are gonna put that in the newsletter Becky just mentioned in the chat,
Yeah,
that
Okay.
it's gonna go out this week.
so. And we can do it more than annually. I mean, we could do it every 6 months. We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, Brianna, for putting that out there. That's helpful for us to put that information together.
Yeah, I'm glad it could be a multi-purpose use.
hey, thanks, Brianna and Claire. Are there any questions out there for the entire team at this time?
So Claire, do we know what the serotype was for the College World Series isolates?
I have not checked yet this morning if they have resulted. So I am unaware, but I can
Okay.
definitely give you a follow-up email after this meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. And I can look it up too. It just sometimes you get these unusual serotypes. It kind of makes an interesting find. Then you start thinking about other things besides common foods. So, yeah. And have you had any people, I know you put a national note out there to be looking for these cases. Have you had any hits on your national note about people that might have been at the World Series and got salmonella?
We did not. We sent out that FEX, I believe it was early last week or late
Yeah.
the week prior. We didn't get any hits back, but we've still had a couple salmonella case interviews come through in a few different jurisdictions that we were unaware of being connected originally.
Okay.
And then after the interview, realized that they were also looped in. So.
Well, we might get some hits from our national sequencing database, so you never know. Be fun to see what comes of this. So anyway, well, I'll check on the serotype as well when it shows up.
Sounds great. Thanks, Pete.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Then I'm actually gonna real quick jump over agenda item 1B there to 1C because that kind of ties in with gathering data for the national database for the CDC. So you might have noticed on our latest communication drill, there was quite a few questions concerning Legionella testing capacity. And so we got some feedback about, we had some questions about why we were concerned with all of that. And so really, considering the CDC national database, they're trying to get a better picture about the spread of Legionella in the US. And so since we here at NPHL can perform whole genome sequencing on Legionella, we're trying to get a better idea of where there's culturing being done, where PCR is being done, so we can start to try and gather some of those isolates that might not otherwise be sent to NPHL. So we can sequence them and we can add them to the CDC database so they can, kind of better track its movement across the US. I know over the last couple of years, Legionella has been kind of ticking up. And so you can expect, now that we've gotten that questionnaire done, or once we close the questionnaire, we'll kind of compile that information and we'll be putting out some guidelines and maybe even reaching out to labs concerning specimen and isolate submission to NPHL. I think that's it. Pete, anything to add about Legionella?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay.
We are part of what's called the National Legionnaires' Disease Laboratory Response Plan. And we realize that most labs don't culture for Legionella, but many labs do have the ability to do a multiplex PCR test. And they may have specimen that's available that could be cultured if they get a detected for Legionella. Those samples we would like sent to the public health lab here so that we can actually do the cultures from those. We do not want urine sent. If you get a urine positive, I know a lot of labs do urine testing for Legionella. We do not want those samples because we can't culture from them, but any positive respiratory sample, if you'd be, willing to send it to us, we'd be happy to accept it and order up a culture under public health so that we can get the isolates for sequencing. So that, just keep that in mind. We rarely see it, but maybe there's more out there than what we're looking for. I think it's worth getting labs engaged to get isolates if we could. So Ben, yeah, you covered it pretty well. That's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Any questions about the Legionella? Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to bounce back to this item, BT organisms and the MALDI. So we understand that our clinical labs are getting busier and busier. Workloads are getting bigger and bigger, and so with that comes the need to complete work in a timely manner, quickly. And so we've fielded a couple of questions about BT organisms going on the MALDI, biothreat organisms, the anthrax, the Burkholderia, brucellus. And so it is considered an exposure when these go on the MALDI for the people in the lab. And so to avoid that scenario, we're asking everybody to really pay attention to your gram stains and just remember that those algorithms are there to avoid situations like this. If you see a gram-negative coccobacilli, especially late spring, summer, assume that it's potentially hazardous before you assume that it's not. And, start your workups under the hood until you can rule out a BT organism, which Becky and I are going to be teaching our annual class about this stuff in September. The best recommendation is to just, stay vigilant. If you got a gram-negative coccobacilli, especially out of a sterile site, treated as potentially hazardous, gram-negative rods that are slow growing, be careful with those day one. And use the algorithms. If you need a copy for your lab, they're available at the NPHL website, or you can reach out to me directly. I think that that's kind of where we landed.
And think of gram-negative coccobacillus from blood or CSF.
Yeah, and gram-negative diplococci too.
Yeah, that's what I meant, diplococci. Meningococcus is out there, and we had 3 or 4 cases of tularemia already this spring, so that we've confirmed. So it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Something to keep in mind.
So just remember the algorithms. There's really no large federal guidelines other than stay vigilant. If you have any, as well, if you're not quite sure about something, don't be afraid to call the pager. We're a resource. We're here to help. So those are the big recommendations that we can give right now. Anything else on that, Pete? I think
you've covered it. No one wants to be prophylaxed after it being exposed in laboratory. Let me just tell you that it certainly is happening, and we just trying to prevent that as best we can. Of course, preventing infections is the main role here, but they're certainly out there, and we need to be vigilant and be aware that these things are occurring. So you covered it pretty well, Ben, as well.
Okay. And so those were some of the things that we were asked about in the communication drill, which will be open till Friday, correct, Becky? I believe Friday. So if you haven't had a chance to respond to that yet, or if for some reason you didn't get the link to the survey, let us know so you can fill that out. And so that is everything for my laboratory topics. So we'll move into, or are there any questions or comments before we move on? Okay, great. So we'll move into the DHHS round robin here, and we'll start with, Ishrat is here with any updates to the HAI antimicrobial resistance. program?
So
Shra-
we actually don't have any major update. The one thing that we noticed is that we are getting MDROs, every week, kind of picking up CPCREs. So in the last 3-4 weeks, we probably had 4 of them that tested positive for CARBA-R. So we're working with them so far, and these are all isolated cases that we know of. There is no outbreak. And then the other thing, I just wanted to give an update on that ongoing CRS outbreak that we had. So for CRS outbreak, we had 360 patients that were exposed to like 5 or 6 patients that were confirmed. And we have been monitoring them whenever they go somewhere. We get a notification in our health information exchange system, and then we try to screen those patients. So far, none of them tested positive. None of them meaning patients that we are monitoring and testing, and none of them tested positive for CREs. But that doesn't rule out the possibility that we don't have CREs somewhere else. We're still looking, we're still being vigilant, and we want everybody to kind of know that there is no specific signs or symptoms for CREs, because they're pretty much look like other MDROs. But if the patient has all types of risk factors, and there are possibility that the lab may be misidentifying CREs as a like C. candida gibraltar or something like that, in those cases, we would request that the sample gets sent out to NPHL for further identification. And the outbreak that we have been monitoring, most likely by the end of August, will be done with 6 months monitoring of it. And hopefully there won't be any cases prior to that. So that's my update.
Thanks, Ishrat. Are there any additional questions for Ishrat? Okay. Nope. Okay. We'll keep moving to SARS-CoV-19. I think Samir is on the call.
Yeah, I'm on the call. Good afternoon, everybody. So for SARS-CoV-2, starting mid-June, we are seeing increase in number of cases. The cases are increasing, averaging about 34 cases per day. And in the last 7 days, there have been 241 cases have been reported to us. Hospitalizations are also increasing. And as of July 5, there were 20 active hospitalizations. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Samir. Derek for flu.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. So hello, everyone. Not shockingly, we haven't seen a whole lot of influenza or RSV this time of year as we typically do. Looking at our influenza test positivity, we've been about around 1% the past several weeks, which is, again, nothing unexpected. Just a couple reminders. About a month ago, we sent out a health alert network given and sharing some summertime influenza recommendations. So just wanted to highlight that. I can drop that link to that Han in the chat in case anyone wasn't able to see that. But with that, Han, it gave information and just awareness about fair season that will be approaching here pretty soon that we're coming up on. So the keep influenza related to swine exposures on your mind. And then also, if your laboratory does influenza subtyping, and if you get a result of influenza A positive, no subtype, please alert us as soon as you can and forward that specimen to the public health labs so we can get that specimen tested there and try to identify a subtype. And that general recommendation for all influenza A and B positives for that matter. If you see one of those positives at your facility, please send those up to the public health lab so we can do confirmatory testing and try to identify a subtype if that hasn't been done already at your facility. And then really quickly on highly pathogenic avian influenza, there continues to be dairy detections across the country. I just checked USDA's website this morning, and to date, there has been 140 positive dairy herds in 12 states. There still has not been a detection here in Nebraska. And just last week, it was announced of a 4th human case of H5 among dairy workers. So this case was out of Colorado. If you recall, the other 3 cases, the first one stemmed from Texas, another 2 from Michigan. So again, this one from Colorado brings the total up to 4 among dairy workers. So with that, that's all I have. Happy to take questions now or later if you want to email or call. Thanks.
Say, Derek, this is Pete. Did you hear in the news at all that like a third of the dairy farms in Colorado are infected with highly pathogenic avian influenza?
I had not heard that.
I heard it was very high. That they were
Looking, so
scared.
yeah, I have the USDA's website pulled up, so I can share this link in the chat too. They have a good little dashboard that tells you the total number of detections in dairies. And Colorado, as of July 1st, has 27 affected herds,
Okay.
which is looking around at the other states, that's quite a lot. And looks like Idaho is the only other state that has more, so that could very well be true for Colorado.
Yeah, okay. So not surprising that there was a human case that showed up in Colorado.
Mhm. Yeah, and from when I read about that human case, the only symptom they reported was conjunctivitis, which is pretty similar to 2 of the other 3 dairy workers who tested positive, and they were able to make a full recovery. This
Yeah.
Colorado case.
Okay. No human to human transmission, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so hey Derek, there's a question in the chat. Maybe you got to this already. It's asking, are we still supposed to do weekly reporting for influenza?
I'm assuming that's in regards to our survey, and the answer to that would be no, you don't have to complete that weekly survey during the summer months. We'll pick up that weekly reporting on week 40. So that will be around the start of October. So we'll send out more information on that as a reminder when we get closer.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks all.
Claire, Brianna, do you have anything else to add for Enterix?
I just looked up our whole genome sequencing reports. We have a couple Chaleys and 1 Berta. So it looks like our Salmonella outbreak is potentially a couple different strains of Salmonella. Hoping a few others result here soon. Otherwise, I don't believe there are any other outbreak updates from us.
Thank you. So next up is Jeff with the arbovirus updates.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. You might have saw in the news here not too long ago that we had our first West Nile virus case, and we've added to that. Now we have our first disease cases of the season to go along with that blood donor that was reported from Douglas County. So West Nile, looks to be in starting up here. Once we get into July, that's typically when we see our activities start to pick up, and then typically peaks toward late August, first part of September. So look for that to be increasing. As part of our surveillance, we do environmental surveillance, collecting mosquitoes from across the state and testing them for the presence of West Nile virus. That kind of helps us detect, where it's circulating, as well as it helps. It's a pretty good predictor of, what we can expect in terms of, is it going to be above average or below average human year. And right now, to date, we've collected a little over just about 30,000 mosquitoes. About 20% of those have been the Culex West Nile virus vector mosquitoes. And we've tested around 318 pools, and 3 of those have been positive detections. We had some early detections, that were earlier than what we typically see. So there was a little bit of worry there early on. We had high Culex numbers and some early positives going on. But in the last couple of weeks, that seems to have decreased and went down. We've only had, the rate of positives has kind of slowed a bit, and the number of Culex mosquitoes has gone down as well. And those 3 positives have all come from 3 different counties, so it's not necessarily being, clustering in one area. We've had one from eastern Nebraska, central and western Nebraska. Looking at our what we call our mosquito infection rates. This is right about average now. Like I said, it was high early on, well above average, but here in the last several weeks, it's gone down considerably and closer to average right now. Another metric we like to look at is the vector index, which takes that infection rate and combines it with the Culex vector abundance. And what we've been seeing over the last several weeks there too is it's trending more towards average. Definitely below what we saw last year around this time. Last year, we were seeing a lot of positive mosquitoes, and we were really well above average for this time of year. But right now at this time, it looks like we're trending closer to that average. So hopefully that's good news for the rest of the year. I know we are running an experimental forecast model. So, kind of take this with a grain of salt, if you will. But right now, based on what we have for our most current mosquito testing data, as well as current weather data that this model takes into account, it is at this point predicting a below average season. The predictions are, around that 60 to 70 human cases. Last year, when we were, using this experimental model, it did predict an above average year. Although it did under predict the number of cases, it still did predict an above average year. But right now, what we're seeing is a below average year currently. Now, this can change as we add more data to it, more of our mosquito testing data as we go into the future. The model will update, but right now that's what we're seeing. So hopefully that holds true and we see a continued below average year going forward. And then with that, one final thing to add is we will be sending out our seasonal West Nile virus HON that talks about West Nile virus and testing in general. We will be offering, again, as we have in past years, testing for suspected neuroinvasive West Nile cases at public health expense. So we're hoping that'll get out hopefully this, sometime this week. So, everyone just be kind of on the lookout for that as we go, come into West Nile virus season here. And with that, that's all I got. So I'd be happy to take any questions, or if anyone has anything else, they can always reach out to me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. If there are no further questions, up next, we've got the TB program. Is Kirsten on? Nope. Okay. Well, is there anybody to take the TB program, or am I missing somebody? Okay, we'll keep moving to the STD program.
I don't believe Tammy's available.
Okay. So lead testing. Brian or Sandra, you're here.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's well after the holiday. Just from the lead side, we've had 2 local health departments reach out to NPHL and to us, making a request for additional supplies, doing the blood spot screening at 2 events. Excuse me. And so we're going to be doing a little bit more promotion and getting hopefully additional local health departments engaged to focus on helping to fill gaps in lead testing. And in our partnership with NPHL. So there'll be some communication going out to the local health departments this week and next, continuing to promote that program. Otherwise, that's all I got.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Okay, well, that wraps up our section updates. Just a few things on the NPHL training side. Like I mentioned, our rule out and refer wet workshop, the invite went out today. We're going to be doing 1 workshop in North Platte on September 5th and another one in Omaha on September 12th. So if you're interested and for some reason didn't receive the invite, let us know. But those went out today to all of the labs. Sentinel Labs, sorry. And then, like I mentioned, the communication drill I have here, it's open till Monday, actually. So if you haven't filled that out, please take the time to do so. It helps us with our our training. And that is everything. So laboratorians, thank you for joining us. You're free to go.
Ben, I have an
Oh,
update.
sorry,
I need
Robin.
to,
Yeah, sorry.
I wanted everybody to know that we have made 3 new conditions reportable. Candida auris, congenital cytomegalovirus, CCMV, and alpha-gal are now reportable. I have put in the chat the memo that details that these are now reportable. So if your laboratory does report these or test for these, they must be reported to DHHS as of now. So we are also putting together a survey to the laboratories just to check and see who does perform this testing for these bugs, and then our ELR team can get in touch with you to do testing to onboard these new reportable. And so this lab survey usually is done by the respiratory team closer in August or September, but due to the new reportables, we're going to be pushing it out a little bit sooner. So please watch out for that. And then, as always, if your laboratory brings on a new reportable disease test, please notify us before you start sending it into your production feed, because we have some things that we need to do in our system to make sure that it doesn't error out. And we need to assign it some places, and we need to make sure that it comes in correctly so you're reporting appropriately. So again, please don't just turn on anything. And then if you ever have any issues or questions about reporting, please let us know. There's contacts on the reportable disease ELR page, or you can always contact me if you'd like. So be on the lookout for that survey, but you can get in touch with your IT folks about reporting those if you perform any tests for those conditions. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Any questions for Robin on the new reportables? Okay, before I close out, is there anyone else? Open mic.
Say, Ben, this is Pete. I have a question for Claire and Brianna on Cyclospora. We've seen a number of positive cases of Cyclospora. Anything going on that you're aware of there?
Not that we are aware of. We look at the cases each week, and we know that there was an outbreak related to a wedding held down in Mexico, but none of our cases are reporting the same resorts down there. A lot of them do report international travel, but none of them have been linked thus far.
Okay. Well,
I'll actually be going through cases again today, so
Yeah.
we'll update you if I find anything.
okay. Just a reminder to the labs out there to send us your positive stools for Cyclospora, because we are doing some sequencing to kind of study the epidemiology of that disease. So if they get a positive, send it to us. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. All laboratorians, you're welcome to log off. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week.